welcome to another episode of the Common Man's Take on Sports with Kevin and
Quentin.
All right, we're finishing up watching some of these night games for college football. We watched that Alabama-Texas game. Man, was that a good game.
Oh, yeah, that was very, very good game. Back-to-back scoring, just...
Yep, Texas ended up pulling it out by 10, 34-24. They beat Alabama. Quinn Ewers had a heck of a game. He threw for 349 yards and 3 touchdowns. Man, what a game. I hate to say this, but I think on our college football preview I said that if Texas had to show me they were back. And today they showed that they're definitely better than they have been in the past couple of seasons. Beating Alabama like that. They took a couple of haymakers from Alabama, but they stuck with it, and they ended up being victorious. And, won that game. So Alabama will definitely drop after that loss.
Yep.
What did you think about that game as we were watching it?
What I thought about that game was that this, it was a really good game. Back-to-back scoring. I really didn't think. I knew Texas would win, but I didn't think Texas would win by 34-24 by 10 points. I thought it was gonna come down to at least a last-second field goal, but how they dismantled Alabama is how they should have dismantled them last year. But this shows that Texas is on their way to being back to an elite program and an elite team.
Can't argue with that right now. Not after that game against Alabama. Oregon just won 38-30 against Texas Tech. Bo Nix threw for 359 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Oregon stays undefeated. Texas Tech looks pretty good too, though. That was a hotly contested game for most of the way. Oregon just had the ball last. Scored. So, man, some really good games today. That was one of them. Let's talk about the Georgia-Ball State game. Georgia handled business as usual. Beck looked good. Carson Beck was 23 of 30 for 283 yards and 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. And then, of course, Georgia had the running back by committee for 99 yards rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns. Their defense looked like the typical Georgia defense. They were flying all over the field, making stops, doing what they do best. So Georgia looks like the number 1 team in the land right now. LSU is having a little bit of a bounce back game right now. They're destroying Grambling 72-10, so they're obviously going to end up winning that game. Jaden Daniels has thrown so far for 269 yards and 5 touchdowns. His day is probably done in the fourth quarter now. Wisconsin and Washington State, man, that's coming down to the wire. Wisconsin was down big, and they've come back, and it's now 24-22 Washington State. We'll see how that one ends. Florida State's handling business against Southern Miss, 31-3 at the half. Third quarter just started. It looks like Florida State's going to end up winning that one. Stanford and USC just started. My pick is I think USC will win that one. I think that they're just a lot better than Stanford is. I don't think Stanford will be able to contain Caleb Williams. Ohio State, they looked better this week than he did last week. However, I still think they have some problems to fix. Their offensive line still looks iffy, and I'm going to be honest with you. They have one more tune-up game against Western Kentucky, and then they got a date with Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Right now, if I had to pick, I'd say that Notre Dame has a great chance of winning that game at home against Ohio State. Just the way that Notre Dame's playing, Notre Dame looks like they're clicking on all cylinders. Matter of fact, we'll go ahead. They won 45-24 and handled their business. I think Ohio State still has some problems to fix. I don't think they're there yet. And man, they better get there real quick.
Yeah, I think the problems that they need to fix is probably the defense.
I agree. Their defense and their offensive line, they need to figure that out real quick. Penn State looked good again today. They won 63-7 against Delaware. Drew Lar threw for 204 yards and a touchdown, but they kind of leaned on their rushing attack today. Their rushing attack racked up 315 yards. So Penn State cruised to victory there. Western State just scored on Wisconsin. It's now 30-22. If they kick the extra point, it'll be 31-22.
Wow.
Man, that one's coming down to the wire.
Yep.
Let's see. Utah handled their business. They were down 13-6 for a little while, and then they came back and scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. One of them they scored off of a defensive stand where they got an interception against Baylor, so they beat Baylor. Baylor's now 0-2. Kansas State won easily against Troy. I got to take my hat off to Deion Sanders again this week. They won 36-14 Colorado. They had a rough go of it in the first half. Nebraska threw some defenses at Shedeur Sanders I don't think he'd seen before, and they were kind of getting to him off the pass rush. Deion's definitely got a good coaching staff down there because they made some second half adjustments. And man, his son really went off in the second half. Shedeur Sanders threw for 393 yards. So, he was 31-42 for 393 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's pretty good. They had 2 rushing touchdowns. One by Shedeur, and then one by Tavares Dawson. So Colorado continues to roll. Nebraska wasn't a good team, but they did give them a tough fight in the first half. So again, hats off to Deion and his coaching staff for making those adjustments. Tennessee struggled a little bit today with Austin Peay, but they came away with the win, 30-13. Oregon, we just talked about them. They just beat Texas Tech, but that was a really good game to watch. Oklahoma handled their business against SMU. They won 28-11. Washington won 43-10 against Tulsa. So Miami beat Texas A&M though. So Texas A&M's going to fall out of the top 25. They beat them 48-33. Mr. Van Dyke had a huge game today. He threw for 374 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's a pretty good day if you ask me. So some teams starting to separate themselves a little bit from the rest of the pack. It's only week 2 though, so anything can happen going forward. We'll see how things go next few weeks. We got one more week and then conference play starts. We'll see where everybody's at when that conference play starts. What do you think about some of these games we watched today?
Some of the games that we watched today, my thoughts on it are, well, Clemson did start off slow. They had a very slow start against Charlotte Southern, but in the first half they did have some turnovers.
Yeah, they threw a pick six, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, 67-yard interception.
Yeah, it was 24-17 at the half.
Yeah, so they were starting off slow, but then when it came to the second half, they scored 6 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns in the third quarter, 2 in the fourth.
Mm-hmm.
Kay Klubnik threw for 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 315 yards, and he was 28 for 37.
Yeah, Bo Collins had a huge day today. 7 receptions for 137 yards and a touchdown. So, I don't know what Dabo told them at half, but whatever he told them, boy, he lit a fire in them because they came out in the second half and Charleston Southern never scored another point, and they rolled up 6 touchdowns to make it 66-17. That's the Clemson we're used to seeing.
That's the
Clemson I expected against Duke in the first week that didn't happen. So we'll see what happens going forward after that. If this is just an anomaly or they're starting to round into form.
Yep. Okay. So.
Michigan handled their business against UNLV.
Yeah, Michigan did handle their business. 35-7.
Yep.
Let's see. Blake Corum ran for 3 rushing touchdowns and 15 carries for 80 yards. J.J. McCarthy had a big day too. He was 22 for 25, 278 yards, and 2 passing touchdowns.
Yeah, he only missed three passes.
Yeah. And Roman Wilson, he had a good one as well. He had 2 receiving touchdowns and 89 yards receiving and 4 receptions. Just 4 receptions, wow. Georgia handled their business against Ball State. Let me see. I think 45-7. I think. Let me check. It was. Yeah, 45-3. They handled their business. Carson Beck had a good game, like last week. He threw for 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, 283 yards, and he was 23 for 30 in the game. Georgia got 386 total yards, only 1 turnover, and 22 first downs. But right now what's surprising me in the stats is that they let Ball State get 224 total yards, and they let them get 31 minutes and 28 seconds in the time of possession.
Ball State's probably a run-heavy team. That's probably why.
Yeah.
You're never going to shut a team completely down. I'll be honest with you. Holding a team to 24 yards combined between rushing and passing, that's pretty impressive. That's very impressive.
Yeah.
Wanted to talk about a couple of games that surprised me.
USC's right now handling their business, leading 14-0 against Stanford.
Yep.
Oregon State's also handling it. They're in the third quarter. They're leading 38-0. Florida State's handling their business. They're leading 45-3 against Southern Mississippi. Wisconsin-Washington State is coming down to the wire. Washington State leads by 9 points, 31-22. Penn State handled their business, 63-7 against Delaware.
Yeah, we talked about that. Let's talk about some games that surprised us, right? So,
yeah.
One game that surprised me was Tennessee Austin Peay. I thought Tennessee would dispatch Austin Peay pretty well, but it didn't really work out that way. They actually allowed them to get 260 yards passing and another 79 yards rushing on the ground. That's a lot of yards to give up to an Austin Peay team that they probably should have dominated from beginning to end. Tennessee struggled a little bit at the beginning of that game.
Yeah, they did.
I don't know. I think I told you for the preseason previews, I don't know if Tennessee's a top 10 team. I don't think they are, in my personal opinion. I don't think they are a top 10 team. But it did surprise me that they didn't beat Austin Peay by more. Another game that's surprising me was the Utah-Baylor game. That was a good game. I thought Utah would beat them pretty handily, but they didn't. It was a tough game for Utah. Not to take anything away from Baylor, but Baylor may be a little bit tougher than people think. Colorado-Nebraska. I thought Colorado would roll them up, to be honest with you, because I know Nebraska's not very good. I don't think Matt Rule is a good coach anyway, but Nebraska's kind of, it's his first year as coach. They're kind of trying to install new defense and offense. I really thought Colorado would really run away with that one. I was surprised it took them the second half to do that.
Yeah.
I did think that Colorado was a lot better than Nebraska as far as where they're at as a team. The Miami-Texas A&M game. Now, that surprised me. I mean, Miami, it was a little closer there in the first half, but, man, Miami just went nuts on them in the second half, 48-33. That one surprised me. Miami should come into the top 25 after that, and Texas A&M should drop out. I would say the Appalachian State North Carolina game surprised me, but it doesn't. Appalachian State always gives everybody trouble. But North Carolina won that game, but they won 40-34, so it was a tough game, tightly contested game. Oklahoma SMU surprised me a little bit. I thought Oklahoma would win that game by more, 28-11. They still won 28-11, so a win is a win. But I thought they would dominate just a little bit more than that. And then the last one, Texas and Alabama. I thought it would be another good game, but I did not think that Texas would win by 10. That was surprising. I did not think Quinn Ewers would have such a huge day like that. Like, that's 349 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. That's against Alabama. That's pretty significant, right? So Alabama's known to have a good defenses most years, and so that really surprised me. Texas will probably definitely move up to the rankings, and Alabama will drop down. But yeah, that Texas defense surprised me too. They really stifled Alabama a lot in that game. They forced Joe Milroe into a lot of bad decisions and turnovers. So, he had 2 interceptions in that game forced by Texas. Just their defense forced it. So, yeah, I was surprised. Texas surprised me. They didn't have much of a running game, but they had just enough to keep Alabama honest. They didn't need much of a running game. They needed just enough. They had 105 yards overall. That was enough. So, yeah, Texas and Alabama, that surprised me. Man, that's a crazy one.
Some games that surprised me are, the Washington State and Wisconsin game. I thought Wisconsin would be winning right now in the game, but I'm surprised that Washington State is beating Wisconsin right now. I'm really surprised.
Oh, they stopped them.
Yeah.
Wisconsin was driving the ball. Washington State stopped them, got the ball back, and they're running it down the field now. There's only a minute and 23 left on the clock, and Washington State's going to win the game. You're right. That game is surprising. I thought it would be a decent game, but I thought Wisconsin might win it. No, sir. Washington State's about to beat Wisconsin. Wow. Interesting.
Another game that surprised me was the Oklahoma and SMU game. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I really thought that Oklahoma would run away with that win, just run away with it and make a complete blowout. But I was not expecting them to win 28-11 against SMU. That was very surprising to me. Another game that surprised me was the Clemson and Charleston game. I really thought Clemson would just refresh from that Duke loss and run away with that win the whole game. I did not expect them to get 2 turnovers in the game, 2 or 3 turnovers in the game. And I expected them to run away with the win the whole game. I did not. But in the second half, they pretty much ran away with it. But that was a surprising game to me as well in the first half. Another surprising game for me was also the Ohio State and Youngstown game. I didn't really think that Ohio State would really. I thought Ohio State was going to run away with that win.
I agree. We're used to Ohio State winning those games like 60-0 or 60-3.
Yeah,
I was surprised that game was 35-7.
Yeah.
I know there are some sports announcers was like, yeah, Ohio State fans should be happy with that offensive performance today, but I don't think so. That's still not a typical Ryan Day Ohio State offense yet. I still think they're having struggles on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they need to do the offensive line as well and that defense.
Nope. I agree.
Yeah. All right.
That is the games for today. One other game I wanted to talk about, the Iowa State game. I thought it was interesting because Mr. Cade McNamara said that, Iowa's going to open up their offense. It's going to be a lot better. It's still the same old offense, struggling offense.
Yep,
nothing's changed.
Yep, they won 20-13 against Iowa State. Nothing's changed from last year.
Nope. 123 passing yards and 112 rushing yards. That's typical Iowa football. Nothing's changed that offensive scheme. Nothing.
Yeah.
That was actually a very tightly contested game.
Yeah, like last year. Last year was a contested game as well against these two teams.
The other game that was on last night was Indiana State. Indiana won 41-7. They kind of redeemed themselves. Well, you know what? I don't even say redeemed themselves because I thought they played tough against Ohio State, holding Ohio State to 23 points. I thought that was Indiana showed a lot of grit and a lot of toughness doing that, so I expected them to blow Indiana State out.
Yeah, I expected that too. I expected them to blow out even more than 41-7. Maybe like 57 to 10 or something. But I mean, still, they did what they had to do against Indiana State.
Mm-hmm. They did.
Yep.
That some closing thoughts. I think that the top teams are still separating themselves. From everybody else. Georgia still looks head and shoulders. Georgia still looks like the number 1 team in the country. Michigan still looks like the number 2 team in the country. Obviously, Alabama whiffed today, so there'll be some movement there. Florida State looks good. They look like they belong in the top 10. USC, I believe, is going to finish strong against Stanford. I believe they'll beat them.
Yeah, but
Penn State looks strong today. The Notre Dame looks strong today, and Texas looks strong today. So, you're looking at the kind of the top teams that I think would have a shot at the playoff right now. Like, they all look good. Ohio State's the only one that I'm not sure about anymore. I don't know. They've been struggling this year so far.
Yeah. Ever since they lost CJ Stroud, they've just been.
But
they haven't been the regular Ohio State.
No.
That they've been over the years.
That'll conclude our show for today. We hope that you enjoyed listening. Remember, we now have a YouTube page, so if you have friends you'd like to recommend the show to and they don't listen to podcasts or have access to podcasts, you can go to YouTube, look us up, The Common Man's Take on Sports. We post all our episodes there. We also post our episodes on Facebook. We have a Facebook page that's under Quentin Kevin, or Kevin Quentin, Common Man's Take on Sports there also. We post all our episodes there. And then if you do have access to podcasts, we're on most platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Samsung, Google. We're all there, so please download our podcast. Please hit subscribe, whether it's YouTube or on the podcast, and hit that like button. We appreciate you for listening, and we thank you. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next time.